Building a family can be a complicated, messy, lonely, and sometimes heartbreaking process. But you don't have to navigate this challenging journey alone.
Welcome to the All Paths podcast, where we support and celebrate all of the different ways there are to grow your family. We are your hosts, Kate and Emily from the nonprofit organization All Paths Family Building. And today we're talking with our friend Kerry about her journey and her work in this space. Kerry, thank you for being our guest today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here and spend time with you.
Likewise. So before we get into your family building journey in a little more detail, we'd love for you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure. So, hello, listeners. I'm Kerry Hinds, and I have a virtual yoga studio that works specifically with those who are building their families. So, I offer predominantly fertility yoga, as well as other programs that are holistic and supportive to the fertility journey. So, I have been doing that now for about 8 years, teaching fertility yoga. Started in Boston, and now I live in Washington State. So that's how I ended up here. What else can I tell you? Is that enough? Do you want more?
That sounds great. I mean, we'll get to know all about all the different facets of the work that you do as we chat. But is it okay if we skip back and talk a little bit about your personal story?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Where did your journey to building a family begin?
Oh my goodness. Well, Germany is where it really actually started, the actual work part of it. But as many people these days, having a family just was kind of put off. I didn't have the right person that I wanted to make babies with until I was like in my early 30s. And then timing, we just wanted to adventure and have fun and go do all the cool things. And then we had an opportunity. My husband was offered a job in Germany, and I was like, well, it might be a really nice time to have kids because the social structure there is so good and supportive for having kids. So we moved to Germany and started trying, and it wasn't working, it wasn't happening. And I was about 35, 36 at this time. So I went to a German fertility clinic where they didn't really speak a lot of English. So it was very interesting. So if you're listening to this right now and English is not your first language and you're doing treatment in English, I see you. I understand how difficult this can be to navigate different languages and different cultures too, different bedside manners than what you might be used to. So that's a sidebar. I can go into that part a little later, but we started with IUI, and our first IUI was successful, and I became pregnant. And then at about 10 weeks, after a couple ultrasounds where we had seen heartbeats and so on, we went in and there was no longer a heartbeat. So that was the first loss of a couple during our journey. And it was so hard. It was like, you work so hard. And I know it was the first IUI. So like even that felt like such a knife in the heart that like, okay, we worked so hard to get here and here we are and it worked. And then no, sorry, it's not the right time. So after that loss, we took a little bit of time and tried to regroup. It was a really hard recovery for me. There was lots of doctor's appointments, had a D&C afterwards. And just, it took a while. It took a while to get back into the headspace of like, let's do this again. Like, what if this happens again? I don't want to do this again. Right. So getting the trust and the hope feeling back up again that, okay, we can move forward. I can work through this again. And then we did a couple more IUIs that were unsuccessful. We snowballed right into IVF. IVF in Germany is affordable, which is a weird word to put next to IVF if we live here in the States, right? Because it is another stress issue here. in this country. And in Germany, they're like, well, it's about $1,500 a cycle, including meds. And this was many years. This was like 15 years ago too. So, so it's probably more now. But, and so we were like, well, we happen to live in this tiny university town that has a clinic. And we're like, okay, you know what? Maybe let's just do this. And I don't think if we had been in the States, I don't think I would have jumped right into it so quickly. I think there would have been a little more hesitation, but because the money side of it was like, well, I mean, why not? Let's just throw a little money at it, see how it goes. And I was just really like not thinking about anything else about the IVF experience other than we can afford it. Let's go for it. So I wasn't particularly prepared mentally, emotionally for what I was about to step into. And I see this often, in this world. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll just go and do some IVF and get my baby, right? We don't think the toll that it's going to take on so many different aspects of our life. So we did some fresh transfers. We did some frozen embryo transfers. And this was back in the day before all the testing and all of this, right? So it was like, here's your embryo. Let's freeze it. Let's thaw it. If it thaws, let's go for it. And we did 5 rounds of IVF without success on any of them. We had one chemical pregnancy in there as well that resulted in a loss, of course. And yeah, we hit a roadblock. We were just like, I don't know. I don't think this is the way I envision my life to be. Like being in this for so long. And we took a moment to pause and just say, do you think we can have a good life without a child? Like we were asking ourselves that question, and we were like, you know what? I think we could. I think we could really still, be happy and do things that we love to do. And that was a real pivot point for us. So we stepped away from IVF at that point. I was exhausted, stressed out, and, gained 25 pounds. It just wasn't doing the things that I love to do anymore, and became obsessed, as we often do, about all the things, putting in my body, on my body, what I'm exposed to every day. And it was just overwhelming. It was too much. And we walked away from IVF. And then 2 months later, I was pregnant with my first son, he's turning 13 this year, which is crazy to think. And then after he came, and he was a hard baby. He was a really hard baby. It was a very difficult time. I had postpartum anxiety and everything after that, which is a whole other topic of conversation. But at about 9 months postpartum, I found out I was pregnant again. So I, went through all that IVF experience. And in retrospect, I don't regret doing it. Like, I think it was part of the path that I needed to go on. And it was also the path that brought me to do what I am doing now. So I don't look back and think, oh, I could have just gotten pregnant myself if I hadn't done all that IVF. I think I needed to really go through that process to land in a spot where my body was like, oh, okay, exhale, release, like nervous system started regulating properly. And then that's what I believe really helped with getting pregnant when I did.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And, of course, we're so sorry for the losses you experienced along the way, which we include. Unsuccessful cycles of IVF also feel in many cases like a loss. And so we're sorry you went through that. But yeah, sometimes it's like, if you could just see the end of your story, you'd be willing to go through the other stages of it to get to the final outcome, but it doesn't make it any easier as you're going through it, for sure. And as you said, it sounds like really some of the most difficult aspects of it were the emotional side of things, more so than the physical. And how did that whole experience impact your relationships, and your, sort of psychosocial need for support. You were also away from home, which can be challenging in its own right. So what was the kind of emotional journey aspect like?
Oh, that's a good question, Kate. It's interesting because being in Germany, I mean, there wasn't, again, this was many years ago. I felt very unsupported mentally, emotionally. No one mentioned to me, like, hey, how about getting some support outside of the fertility clinic? It was just, come on in, we're going to make you a baby, everything's going to be fine, and then leave. And I think there was one fertility group, IVF group out where I was, but it was all in German and my German sucked. Like I couldn't explain emotionally what I was going through, nor could I understand what other people were saying. So that was much more stressful for me to think about going to one of those groups at that point. So, relationship wise, I would say, like, because you're going through it with your partner, and we had sort of a dual factor situation, like his sperms were a little wonky. They had a couple heads and many tails. And we were like, whoa, that's interesting. Okay, we could work on that. And then, my hormones were kind of flatlining. Like there wasn't a lot of movement in my chart. So really it wasn't like it was his fault or it was my fault, or like we were placing the blame on one another because we were both equally in it. And, he is so supportive. Like he will do anything that I asked him to, but as often in these heterosexual relationships, that the woman takes on a lot of the burden to figure out what it is that needs to happen, right? And be like, okay, I did the research. Here are the supplements that you need to take. You need to take these. You need to wear these underpants. You need to stop riding your bike and put your phone in your back pocket, right? So there was a lot of mental load going in to like take care of both of us. So that was hard. And then, my family knew what was going on. They were a good family. They weren't, always calling and asking and what's going on and tell me all the things. And they were like, okay, we know what's going on. You tell us when you have something to tell us when you want to. So that was good. I had a friend going through it at the same time. I had some really close friends in Germany who knew what was happening. So they were going to the clinic with me to translate for me. So talking about cervical mucus and like this and that all in German. And I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. Schleimhaut. What is that? I don't know. Cervical mucus, Schleimhaut. Yes. So anyway, but yeah, it was hard, the mental, emotional, and that's where the yoga came in for me. That was my lifeline and my place to land when I needed that extra support.
So had yoga always been a part of your life? Did you have a regular practice, or was this something new that you started when you were going through your own journey as trying to find a coping strategy?
Yeah. So I had been doing yoga for quite a while, but a really athletic style of yoga with lots of handstands and arm balances and just fast moving yoga, like which we still see today. Like, of course, this is sort of what we think of when we think of yoga. And actually, when we were in Germany, it was my 35th birthday. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not pregnant. I need to go do something for myself at 35. So I signed up for a yoga teacher training and I went to Portugal for a month and I started teaching yoga when I got back and was teaching yoga in English in Germany as well. So that was before, well, I mean, this was all happening at the same time, but when I actually was like, oh, I could use my yoga to support this process, was when the light went off. And then I started doing some research and there was nothing. Like back then there was nothing on fertility and yoga and like how it can support you. So I was kind of making it up as I was going. I knew that restorative yoga would be a good place to start. So like regulating the nervous system. And so that's where I kind of started. I just slowed the practice down. I just slowed it down so much and really tried to emphasize more like moving in and around the pelvis. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, this feels good and it seems like it would be okay. So I'm going to go there and then I'm going to rest on my props and stuff for 20 minutes at the end of class. So yeah, that was a huge part of my journey for sure. Yeah, the yoga.
Well, and it's so wonderful, like how it has evolved from that. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, I feel like you were such a pioneer in that way, but also you were the perfect person to do it in the sense that you were guided by what you needed most in that moment, and so I think that combined with your expertise in the area, obviously, and the research that you were doing, I think was the perfect like recipe for success with fertility yoga. And it was great that it met needs for you as well while you needed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I look back and I think like you don't know what is going to become of anything when you're in it, right? Like and so I often say this to my students, it's like be open to the other experiences that are not fertility related, right? Like go for the hike, go for the walk, go for the trip, do the things, because you don't know what you're going to come across when you're doing those things. Like you could meet somebody who's doing IVF and like develop this amazing friendship in somebody in Italy or like who knows, right? But like there's like how can we just be more open to the other parts of life and how that can support fertility as opposed to going like just put the blinders on, Google search, support fertility, boost fertility, take this pill, take that pill, and so on. So
Yeah.
So yeah, be open. And I know so many people who have gone through their own IVF journey who have created something so beautiful on the other side, not necessarily yoga, but coaching businesses and supports and t-shirt companies and like just so many different things have come out of that struggle that are so beautiful. So yeah, it's been the wild ride for sure.
So yeah, I mean, on the sort of professional side, how did it grow from there? Like, and kind of where are you focusing your efforts today?
Yeah, so we moved from Germany to Boston when the kids were 2 and 3. And the first thing I wanted to do was take a prenatal yoga teacher training course because it was part of my journey during pregnancy. And I did that. And the studio owner, so Beck Conan, Own Births, she's all over Boston. You probably know her. And she just was so supportive. She's like, come work for me, teach prenatal yoga, postnatal yoga. I was like, okay. And I'm like, hey, has anybody ever done fertility yoga around here? She's like, I have no idea, but if you want to do it, go for it. So with her support, I was really able to just start to create something. And I did do a teacher training. There was a woman out of Vancouver, Canada. And, it was just totally on demand, just read a few things and whatever. But really, there was nothing. But I just sort of molded this little program, which started as like a Monday nights in Watertown, in this little room with fairy lights, and I'd get like 2 or 3 people, which was beautiful. Like to me, I was like, wow, there's 2 or 3 people that want to do this. That's great. And then, yeah, over time, it just, started growing a little bit more. People were starting to get a little bit more interested. I think the concept wasn't so new anymore. And I was lucky enough to come across people like you, Kate, at that time, who were super supportive of what I was doing, was like, oh, yeah, like, tell us more and like, let us help you get the word out or write a blog post. So even though I live in Washington, I still work on Boston time because that's where most of my people come from. So yeah, just developed from there. And then I took everything online about 3 months before COVID.
Good timing.
It was like my spidey senses came up, was like, you need to go online. I had been working on it for years, like about a year, to get the website and like everything in place. And then the moment that it shut down, everything shut down, the next day I was like, I'm ready to go. And I left the yoga studio I was working at. I was like, nope, I'm just going to take it online. And I did. And it's been online ever since. I have people I'm running a program right now. I have someone in the UK. I've got someone in Texas, someone in Kansas, someone in Minnesota, some people in Boston. Like, so it's just a really lovely, it's a lovely way to be able to connect with people all over. And I do miss the in-person. I do miss that for sure. But I'm planning some in-person things coming up, so that'll be cool.
Tell us.
We can get to that in a minute.
We
are very intrigued. But for somebody who might be listening, who maybe has done like one or two yoga classes, but the idea of fertility yoga is new to them. How is it different from other types of yoga? What is the science behind a fertility yoga practice?
Yeah, so it's quite different than what our Western minds think of when we think of yoga, which is like hot power yoga, sweaty, moving, acrobatic, gymnastic-like sort of yoga. So what we do in fertility yoga, or at least what I do, I know that there's other teachers out there that take a slightly different approach, but so it's, like I said, there's some restorative base aspect to this, which is where the nervous system regulation really kicks in. So we are starting to train the body to relax, basically. Like, we're just stuck so high all the time in that fight or flight, and it's chronic during this whole fertility journey, that it's like we can't take the stress away. The stress will always be there, right? We can't just flick the switch, say, I'm not going to get stressed out during this journey anymore. Like, it just doesn't happen like that. What we need to do is find tools to put in place that can help bring us down every now and again. And I always call that parasympathetic, the rest and digest part of our nervous system, like rest, digest, and reproduce, because that's where our bodies feel safe. And they're like, okay, this is a good time. Let's get those hormones going on that side of things. Instead of, the body will always prioritize safety and life over reproduction. It is like, I mean, in Ayurveda, we say it's like at the bottom, it's the bottom things to be nurtured by what we're taking in is the male and female, male reproductive tissues and organs. So they're often the first ones to go offline. So it's so important, is one of the biggest parts of it. And then there is some, I call it slow flow yoga. So it's just slower, it's more mindful movement that we're trying to get into the pelvis. Our lifestyles these days, like, it's things pool in the pelvis. It's stagnant energy, stagnant blood, not great oxygenated blood, like what we want, right? Because we're sitting, we're driving, we're always going forwards, right? Like, we're always looking forwards. We're hardly ever going sideways or doing different things. So with the yoga, we're opening up the pelvis. We're bringing oxygenated blood to the pelvic organs. We're opening up the hips, which of course are super related to all things in the fertility realm. We're working with the pelvic floor, which some people are surprised, but not surprised. But like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. Because the pelvic floor is involved with this period. And it's also the home of like our fear. It's like a stress, like things get really tight. I call it the gateway to the womb, right? Like, it's like, if our pelvic floor is super tight because we're caught in stress mode all the time. We've got, Wanda coming out at every visit. We've got, like, there's just a lot going on down there. Egg retrievals, frozen embryo transfers, right? So I'm developing a relationship with that part of our body and allowing it to be more supple. Like, it goes up and down. No one can see my hands moving right now, but my hands are going up and down like a jellyfish, right? So like this supple pelvic floor. So there's that. There's community involved. So we do lots of checking in. Everybody, if they feel comfortable, can tell their story. It's like to think of it as like a low lift support group, right? Like you have your great support groups. People are like, sometimes it's like a lot. So like coming here, I just get to say hi, I say my little thing, and then I'm done, right? So I have those. That piece is the community. And then there's the energetic and the spiritual side of it. I usually take some themes from yoga. So like yogic wisdom, whatever it may be, or a theme that comes up often in fertility, like trust or hope or surrender, letting go, or these sorts of things, and really bring them into the practice so we can embody them, right? Like sometimes these concepts are so mental, right? Like what's hope? What's trust, right? But it's like, oh, how do I feel that? How do I feel hope in my body? Where do I feel it? How do I feel trust in my body? How does that feel to trust myself, to move, and so on? So it really is, there's a lot that goes into a class, I tell you.
I know. Well, it sounds absolutely wonderful. And I want to send myself back in time and have younger Kate
come to younger Kerry's fertility yoga class.
It just sounds wonderful. And one thing I've always just really, really appreciated about you is that, we kind of sort of joke, but don't joke about how much pretty much everyone in the fertility community hates to hear just relax. But I think what's key is like relaxation can be really important and wonderful. It's just that for one, it's obviously this sort of dismissive nature that somehow that alone will make you successful when particularly obviously given some people's diagnosis, relaxing really has nothing to do with it. And so it's that simplification that's a problem. But I also love that you say, you're not just saying relax, but here are some strategies, not just taking a full class with you maybe, but other strategies that you've shared with our community over the years of ways you can just do it and fit it into your life. But it's also like not, stressing about relaxing is then another, you're creating another problem. And that it breaks my heart when I see people in our community worrying that they're not doing each and every single thing they can do, because I'm like, no, now you're actually stressing about what you're doing to help yourself be less stressed. And it's a vicious cycle. So I really, really appreciate how you have integrated that and shared that with our community. And so you mentioned about something in person on the horizon. So now we would love to hear about that.
Yeah, so this is super exciting. This is something I've been wanting to do for years and years and years. So it's finally manifesting. It's taken a while to manifest it, but I am co-creating with two other wonderful practitioners who work in the fertility space, a in-person all-inclusive retreat. So it's going to be just for fertility and for really with a lot of the messages we were getting from like my students and their clients was like, people want to be sort of pampered and held, right? Because it's like, there's so much going on, right? When we're going through this, like there's so many appointments, there's so many things. And even though we know like the thing we know is like, I need to take better care of myself. It's so hard to do when you're stuck in real everyday life. And that is one of the joys of retreating, is that it like takes you out of that so you can have experiences. And then when you go back, it's like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I know how to do this. I don't have to do obviously the whole retreat every single day, but I can, bring this back into my life and find the time for that 5-minute meditation that we were doing every morning on retreat, or that yoga class, or whatever, that massage that felt so good. So yeah, this is happening end of April 24th to 27th. So it's a Thursday to Sunday, because I was like, we need at least 2 full days with everybody. And it's in New Hampshire. And Hillsborough, New Hampshire, at Bethel Farms is called. It's a beautiful farm. It's got miles of hiking trails that people can wander on. There's a sauna, there's a bonfire pit, there's a cold pond plunge if people are into that sort of thing. I am not, but if people want to immerse their bodies in cold water, I'm going to look more at the research on that on fertility. But there's farm to table food. There's a beautiful yoga studio. And I'm doing this with two colleagues, Justine Cohen, who is a spirit baby medium. So there will be one-on-one spirit baby readings, which I know for some might sound a little woo-woo-y, but the concept of spirit babies to me when I was going through my journey was really so comforting to know that it wasn't just me. Like I was working with like a baby, a soul of a baby who was like trying to get to me, and like the timing, or they were waiting for certain situations to happen to make it good timing. So I love spirit babies. I think it's lovely. People I work with love them too. And then we have Phoebe Lyman, who is really into conscious conception and rewilding for conception, like how to reconnect with nature to get the, like, we've taken things that would have naturally happened, so like going outside in the sunshine, and now we're like making appointments to go get the red light therapy or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So, or like we would, make our own food, grow our own food in the garden, which would have all the micronutrition things that we need, so we don't have to go and buy all the supplements that we're supplementing our bodies with. So it's like, how can we get back to a little bit of that? So she's going to do that. She is a Mercier therapist, so she does this amazing massage, so everybody gets a massage. I mean, there's so much. It's going to be good. Fertility yoga, of course, and other workshops, and everything is optional. So it's like, if you want to just sleep all day till noon, then go for it. Oh, we don't care. Like, that is fine if that's what you want. So yeah. So that's my big exciting news.
So great.
That sounds magical.
I love it.
Right? Oh, so good. So good. It's going to be so good. I'm so excited.
Well, congratulations just on conceptualizing it and making it happen. It's like, it's never too late for these things that are in our hearts and minds that we want to do. And it's like, we're going to get there eventually.
Timing is right. Finding the right people.
Oh, I wanted, I would never hug people without permission, but if they want hugs, I'd be like, I would have like a booth
the
like
hugger.
Lucy from Peanuts.
One Kate hug.
Like, you need a hug, bring it in.
Yeah, there you go. No, I mean, there's never really been retreats for this. Yep. And it is high risk because as I know, that people have a hard time signing up for things like this because I might be pregnant or this might be going on. So we are allowing like early pregnancy. So like for people that have a frozen embryo transfer like in March, right? They're like, well, I might be pregnant, but okay, that's fine. Like, early pregnancy and so on, just to help with that. Because it's also such a stressful time.
It is. I mean, of course, pregnancy after these struggles, as we know, is still fraught with emotion. So
yeah,
for many. So, well, congratulations. And it sounds wonderful. And hopefully it's the first of many types of things like this, because as you know, we've been wanting to do something like this too. That's just so enriching and nurturing, and it's exciting.
Yeah. And it could go so many different ways. Like, yeah. Meaning like so many different supports that can be brought into it. Like you can bring an acupuncturist, you can bring in therapists and so on.
Yeah, Reiki would be great.
Yeah. I'm going to do Reiki on this. So it'll be yoga nidra and restorative yoga with Reiki, which is what I used to do in person in my classes when people were coming in person. So I'm excited. That was why I pushed this, because I was like, I need to work I need to be in real life with people again. I just missed it so much. Also when I'm coming out to Boston, I'm going to stay a little longer, and I'm doing a fertility yoga teacher training in Boston with Beck out of her studio. So I was like, let's do it. Cool. Why not? Let's do it. So yeah, lots of exciting things happening.
So we will be sure to put the links to everything in the description. But if people are interested in learning more, either about the retreat specifically or about everything else that you do, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so my website, fertilebodyyoga.com is sort of the main hub. And I'm on Instagram at Fertile Body Yoga. If you go to the website and even Instagram, and if you go into the bio, there's lots of freebies all over. So there's a free yoga class, there's a free ebook, there's a free meditation, just so people can get a feel. But I also welcome people to just reach out to me and ask me questions, because sometimes it's hard to navigate. It's like, I don't know, what do I need to do? Just email me, and I do free like half-hour discovery calls. No pressure to buy anything, but it's just if you want to sit and talk and figure out what would be the best way to support. And that's, yeah, so there's lots there, so just go there. That's the hub. Yeah.
Wonderful. So before we wrap up, there are two questions that we try to ask every guest, and it's been really fun to see all the different responses that we've gotten. But question one for you is, what is one thing that you would say to someone who is just starting on their journey to grow a family?
Oh, just starting. See, I remember you told me you were going to ask me these questions, and then I forgot, so I didn't think about them. So this is totally off the cuff here, but I would say if you're just starting out, I think pause and take a deep breath. And I think that there really just needs to be, there's so much got to do it now, push in our culture, that we lose the softer touch, which is really where our fertility is. So take a pause, breathe deeply, and really just like put it in place that you're going to continue to live your life the way you want it to be lived while you're doing treatments or whatever the road brings for you. Because I think we just get so lost. We get so lost. And if we don't set that intention at the beginning, it's hard once you're in the middle of it to be like, right? Yeah. It's my new thing. It's this minimalist fertility. I don't know. Did I tell you about this?
No, do tell.
It's like how, like, a minimalist approach to fertility. We should do another podcast on that because it's a whole other topic, but it's like, choose your core value. Like, what is your core value that you want to take with you on this journey? And then anytime you come to a crossroads or a decision to make or whatever, you go back to that core value and say, is this in alignment with how I wanted things to go? And like, sometimes you do have to make hard decisions, which of course are like totally off what you had planned. But those smaller little decisions, like, should I take the vacation? Should I go on that retreat? Right? Like, yeah, you should go on that retreat because you said, hey, like, I want to keep living life while I'm going through this. Okay, I could go on, but I think that's kind of where I would land with that one.
I love that so much. Because I mean, you're so right. There's this constant pressure to just keep moving forward, and you don't have time to even think about what the next steps are. You're just being told that like this is what you do next, so it snowballs, and then you
so if you have a touch point to always come back to, like, maybe it's like, listen to my intuition or listen to my gut or something like that, like, trust myself, that when your doctor's pushing you to do another round, but your gut's telling you to, like, no, I need a break, like, you're going to listen to your gut over what your doctor said. And your doctor works for you, right? We always forget that they work for you. You don't work for them. So you're paying them, or the insurance is paying them. So like, you get to decide your path. You're the captain of your ship. There we go.
I love that.
Kate's like waving her hands, whoop, whoop, raise the roof.
She's vibing on this one.
She's vibing. Okay.
So the question that's kind of the flip side of this is, as someone who has been through this journey before, that people don't always say the right thing. So what is one thing that you wish people would never say to someone who is struggling to build their family?
So never say, I think, would be, it'll happen when the time is right, which sounds so weird because this is something that I actually believe, right? Like I believe deep down, like it will happen when the timing is right. But when you're in the middle of it, you're like, this is the right time, right? Like this is the right time. This should be happening now. So when someone says it'll happen, it's like they're just brushing off your present experiences that you're having in that moment. So it's hard. It's a double-sworded one, because I do actually think when the timing is aligned and everything is aligned perfectly, that's when your baby comes. But it's hard to listen to. Like, just relax or calm down and it will happen. Someone did tell me that once. I was like, "Ugh, I'm gonna slap you." I did not, because I did yoga and I was calm.
That is the second time that phrase has incited violence.
I know.
Yeah, you're not the first. You're not the first to react that way, for sure.
No, I know. Yeah. And people feel they need to fill the space, right? They need you tell them something that's like emotional, and people want to take you out of that feeling emotional rather than letting you sit in there and process it the way you need to. It's like, oh, I'm going to pull you out of that. I'm going to save you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to like say this thing. It's going to make you feel so much better. But rarely nothing does in those moments. Like mostly it's just like, I am here for you. I will walk with you on this path and support you. And, you know, I'll take it from you, your cues of what you need, and I'll make you dinner and do the things that everybody needs. A home cooked meal.
Amen, sister. Amen. Yeah, that's the thing, is like when people say it will happen, or like, I know it will happen, that's when people want to slap you. So you're like, no, you don't know that. Nobody knows that. Just flip it just slightly and say, like, you're wishing for it to happen for us. You know how badly we want it, and just send us your good thoughts, send us your love, but you don't know that it will happen or when.
So true.
So
yep.
That doesn't help.
Yeah. And in yoga, we have this phrase, like, you can only control your actions and not the outcomes. And that can be for the words coming out of your mouth, whatever you're putting in your body, whatever, like though that is what you can control. But once the action is done, what happens after is you can't control it. And we try to control it so much and we just can't. So if we can just focus on, like, in the moment, what are we doing? Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kerry. This whole conversation has been lovely, and I'm so excited to hear about the retreat afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
So I've been raising the roof the whole time because I love everything you say.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on the podcast. And I know I've had Kate on my podcast too. So at Fringe Fertility.
Yeah, we'll put that we'll link to the whole podcast in the show notes.
Thank you so much, Kerry.
Thank you.
We hope you'll join us next time for more family building stories and resources. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you never miss an episode. And follow us on social media at allpathsfb, or visit our website, allpathsfb.org, for more information about our work. All Paths Family Building is so grateful to the members of our circle of support, who are vital to our ability to provide emotional support, education, and advocacy that is open to anyone struggling to grow their families. Today, we want to give a special shout out to our gold sponsor, Ferring Pharmaceuticals. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please help spread the word so that anyone who is struggling to grow their family can join the conversation. It's an honor to walk with you on your family building journey.